Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today I'm doing part two of the video series on Stalker the Sci-Fi role-playing game. So today we're going to focus on the GM section of the book. Now this game, if you're not familiar with it, came out in 2012. Its primary author is Ville Varela. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I recently made contact with him on Facebook, and hopefully we can get together and discuss the game. Perhaps he can clear up any misconceptions I might have about the game and its system, and maybe even down the line can actually do an interview with him, which would be phenomenal. So one thing he did tell me. He left me a little message that I didn't mention in my first video because I was unaware, is that different languages, the book will be released in different languages. I believe the next one he mentioned was that it's going to come out in French, and hopefully that will continue to to lead a trend towards the game coming out in different languages beyond that as well. So really looking forward to that for the game system. And without further ado, let's move on to taking a closer look at the game itself. So in case you're picking this up from the, having not seen the first episode of this, here's the book. It's a pretty dense volume, and picked it up on Lulu for, I got it on sale for like 30% off. So I guess it's regularly priced around $20. So I got it for about $16.99. So it was a nice purchase as far as that goes. And like I said, it's over 200 and over 240 pages of content here. So it is quite substantial role-playing system. And because there's a number of pages in here, you would think that the game mechanics are, it's mostly game mechanics, and that's not the case here. And I know in the first video I had mentioned that it uses what's called a flow system. So it's much more narrative and talking less dice rolling, and it's more of a question and answer kind of gameplay. So the player will declare what they're looking to do, and then the game master will say, well, all right, so you're looking to do this, and what, and what are you using to assist you in doing this? And meanwhile, the GM is kind of calculating out the possibilities of success or failure, and then the GM will explain what the consequences are. So there's not that much dice rolling going on in here, and let's get right into that when we start taking a look at the Game Master section. So here I have the book, and unfortunately I don't have the PDF, so I can't do the usual just scrolling through the PDF here, but I will try to handle this as best I can with the book itself. So let's get to our first tag here, and that's the basics of flow. So let me bring this down a little bit lower so that you can actually see and let it get caught up. So hopefully you could read along. Flow is a general purpose rule set, but it is described from the perspective of the Stalker, both as a genre and a setting. The rule set can easily be converted into another system if you rethink the definitions of attribute and rewrite the ability list. So success and failure. When a character undertakes a task, succeeding is not obvious. The game master must evaluate the outcome by three criteria: attributes, abilities, and challenges. Okay, so here are the three criteria of abilities, attributes, and challenges in challenge settings. So again, the player will say, I'm looking to do this. You take a look at the attribute that might apply to what they're looking to do and see what that attribute score is. All right, so let's look at that. So give a general picture of the character's physical and mental capabilities in different areas of life without the separate specific experience or training for the task at hand. Is the character fit enough to endure a long walk without water on a hot day? Is the general knowledge sufficient from the thing here, even if he hadn't studied or worked on it? Is the attribute score is high enough? It can be enough for success. The extra points will go into improving the results. So if a character has an attribute score of 3, because they have 3 skills within that particular attribute. Let's say the attribute is fitness, like they're giving an example here. And let's say that going without water, the GM had determined, well, that would be a challenge level 2, but the attribute score for fitness is a level 3, is number 3. All right, so they have a 3 in the attribute. The challenge is only a 2, so they are going to be successful, and that extra point is not only going to make them successful, but now you can, the GM can now apply a added benefit or bonus to the result because the player had an excess in achieving that particular task they were working on. Abilities tell you what are the areas that the character is especially educated, trained, or experienced in. And it works basically the same way. If they have a carpentry skill, let's say, and I'm just taking that off the top of my head, and they have to work around breaking through a door, let's say, and using their heads because they don't have the physical training to break through that door or the physical ability to actually break through it, but someone with a carpentry skill might be able to take a look and examine this door and notice various weak spots that they can then try to, see if that will get them through. And then that will further modify an attempt to then break down the door where somebody else with a physical ability might be able to assist them in doing so. And so it really becomes a much more oratory way of getting through these challenges rather than dice rolls. And finally, the challenge enters the picture when both the attribute and having the ability are not enough. The player tells the GM what the character seeks to accomplish and how. In this case, the situation must already be somehow dramatic or special. The player character knows the risk of failure and all its associated consequences exist, and if he undertakes this task, he crosses the point of no return. The ordinary person who lives in a normal life and does not constantly push his own limits generally does not get into challenge situations. This is one or more way in which stalkers and others who lead dangerous lives differ from the average Joe. So, excuse me. So, there are various ways of creating challenges and then calculating outcomes, and that is further detailed in the Game Master's book of this RPG. So, burn off a point from the attribute score that applies to the situation and request a favor from the GM. So that's the hand of fate. All right. And so that's one way that they can potentially overcome a challenge that they were not successful in. And then they give an example down here of doing just that. All right, so the lost attribute points will return by the next game session. So you can, let's use fitness again. you could burn up some of your fitness points in order to achieve some goal that needed to be done. And now for the remainder of the game session, your character, instead of having 3 attribute points in fitness, will now only have 2, because he or she had decided to overexert their body in order to overcome that challenge. So I really like this kind of a system. And as I mentioned in my previous video, I've never actually encountered this kind of a semi-diceless system um, before in all of the RPGs that I've covered. So this is really a first for me, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity of speaking with the author about this system. It's, you know, being that it is the first time that I've actually come across it. So there's a section on challenges, and so an easy challenge is a 2. A routine one is a 5. Uh, Challenging would be 10. Difficult would be 15, and so on and so on. So the mathematics of the rules. So you utilize your, what you're looking to do and your attribute score and possibly your skills as well. And once those are combined, in most cases, something that is easy or routine is going to be an automatic. All right. And so the player will just say, I'm looking to open that door. And the door is not locked. It's just a closed door. You don't have to roll that, thankfully in this system, the GM will just sit there and say, okay, it's not a particularly challenging door to open up. You can open it up. All right. Or I want to lift that 50-pound box over there. All right. My character has a fitness of a 2. And so the GM decides that, yes, a 50-pound box for somebody with a fitness of 2 is an easy task to complete. And so it doesn't require any expenditures of extra points or anything like that. Yes, you can move that box. All right. So there's the easy form of developing challenges and creating challenges. Challenges could also be tied to a time limit, or how much time it actually takes to overcome the particular challenge. And so that's where some of those excess points you can actually achieve it faster than what was originally thought to be part of the challenge. And so that's one way that the GM can reward you for expending extra points on it. So there is time. How long does it take a solution, or what the GM considers to be a good idea for overcoming the challenge? He is not omniscient, and so the players may easily come up with better solutions. It is not necessary to always think up a solution beforehand. In any case, with the proper ability, a stalker is an expert here. All right, so yeah, if the player is describing in detail what they want to do and how they intend to do it, it actually becomes easier for the GM to set the challenge. All right, and kind of know, yes, you know what, if you're doing this and this, your challenge is going to be routine for you. Or maybe your challenge is still going to be somewhat challenging, and even though you have 7 points to put into it, um, this challenge is an 8 challenge, so, levels. So what else are you going to attempt to do? Or to keep the numbers out of it, because this is supposed to be narrative, the GM should explain what is it about. Well, you know what? You can lift that box and you can get it pretty much onto one of its corners, but you still just don't have enough strength or fitness to actually lift it over a particular obstacle. All right. And so that's where the player will then turn, well, then I'm going to ask Eddie to come in and join and help me with this particular task. And so it just adds to the action in how the players have to explain in detail what their characters are looking to do. And then the GM is constantly recalculating the challenge and just thinking to themselves, you know, is what the player doing now, is that going to be enough to meet this challenge? So evaluating ideas. So same thing when the players are coming up with ideas and throwing them at the GM has to evaluate these ideas. So even if the GM understanding of car engines is only slightly above nothing, he may sometimes have to decide how difficult fixing a malfunction is and what is the best way to go about it. In such a case, it is best to avoid too many details or description. Stalkers might know what they are doing even when the GM and the players do not, and it is sufficient for a solution to be credible in the boundaries set by the story or genre. Otherwise, the players would have to have the same abilities as their characters, or vice versa, right? So, a stupid idea, a one, is how the player understands the situation or challenge correctly. This is not this is this will not be beneficial and might in fact be actively harmful. So if the player's idea is deemed to be a stupid idea, then the GM is going to further hinder their attempt in some way. A weak idea, the character knows what he wants, but there's something off with the implementation. Climbing up a tree ass first, not using the proper tools, and so on. And so, once again, yes, they could potentially be successful here, but it's just hindered by having a kind of a weak idea of how to get there from here. Next is a functional idea. In other words, it's doable. And so if the GM is realizing that, hey, this is a durable idea, then then it's a success. And then finally, a brilliant idea. If the players really do come up with something that the GM didn't anticipate, it's still obviously tied to the task that they're looking to do, and it's just a really, really good idea, then of course it's going to be successful, and they will probably end up with with bonuses to being so brilliant in their idea. Moving on, we go to interpreting results. So once again, one of the things that the GM is primarily doing is to constantly interpret what is going on, what is being, what is being declared, how are they going to do it, and then what is the end result. So how does the attempt affect the stalker? How does the attempt affect the rest of the team? How does the attempt affect the environment? And potentially even the story as well. So these are interpreting the results based on that narration, how to, and then what happens. The philosophy of success, the philosophy of failure. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on failure here, at least in the beginning. And that is first the philosophy of failure, why the attempt failed. It could have just been botched. It could have been just a simple failure. It could have been a good effort. There could have been some kind of an achievement which not only completes the task, but also might have some kind of a benefit to it. And then finally, there could have been a great achievement. So let's look at botched. The stalker did something really, really wrong, and the result is usually the opposite of what was attempted. Instead of a repair, he has caused more damage. All right, for a failure, the attempt fails because of the mistake and the stalker. I got so many things going on here. I apologize. And let me just hit this here too. And so the attempt fails because of the mistake the stalker made, but the situation is still ongoing and other solutions may be attempted. For a good effort, fell short of the goal, but the situation has been changed in some way that is beneficial to the stalker or the team. A creeping stalker notices in advance that he cannot proceed without being exposed. He can still go back and rethink his strategy. An achievement, the situation was made clearly advantageous to the stalker or the team, but the actual good was still not reached. If the idea was to shoot someone, the shot misses, but the opponents panicked and are committed tactical errors right now. And then finally, a great achievement. Aiming for the stars and hitting the moon. The goal is practically impossible, but there are remarkable benefits from the attempt. You could ask whatever this one really counts as a failure at all. All right. So even though you might have not gotten your primary objective, but you've achieved like several secondary and possibly even tertiary objectives, and those might be as combined up just as good as having gotten your other. So these all lead to the potential for a retry. All right. So a retry depends on the situation and whether there is still time. Some challenges could be tackled again and again. All right, so you can continuously make these attempts to be successful as long as there's time. There's, obviously time. There's opportunity for other potential solutions to that problem and so forth. Going to the next section that I tabbed off. So combat, this also works in combat situations. And here in the Game Master's booklet, they give you several examples of combat and how that is resolved as well. So in this first example here, the stalker running from three knife-wielding robbers along the back alleys of Toulouse. He cannot shake them off, but dives into a labyrinth of hanging sheets left too dry on a low-hanging clothesline. He gets out of the robber's sight for a moment and takes up an ambush position at the corner of the next building. His plan is to hit the first enemy hard, use others realize that their prey is not worth the danger. The pursuer's toughness is 12, but they are armed and outnumber the stalker. So in practice, it is a 20. The GM thinks that the idea, especially with the advantage of surprise and limited goals, not trying to beat up all three at once, is a good idea. 4. The stalker grew up on the streets himself, so he does not shy away from combat, and he has a tough guy's reputation to uphold, which makes his solution credible from the role-playing point of view. 4. Additionally, he is a Budoka, which gives him a +1 modifier to both values 5 and 5. The result is a 25 and beats the opponent's score. All right, so when the first robber rushes around the corner, the stalker slams his heel of his hand in his face, breaking his nose, eye socket, and cheekbone With his other hand, he whirls the man around and shoves him towards the other robbers. A knife flashes, but the stab aimed at the stalker sinks up to the hilt into the human shield. The victim coughs, sprays blood on his killer's face. The third thug freezes where he stands, horrified. The stalker pushes the dying man into the arms of the knife wielder and rushes off. The pursuit does not continue as the thugs stay behind in a futile effort to help the dying friend. Body count does not always win battles. All right, so as you can see, no dice rolling here, just an explanation and an idea, and then taking their particular attributes, combining them up to see, does this meet the challenge? Let's see. Oh, I just pulled that. All right, so experience. So everything that you're doing in this game is going to generate experience, whether it just be a player's experience in a metagame kind of way where they start to learn how to better explain what their characters are going to attempt to do, and think of various enhancements to their abilities as they're going on, and that could be equipment that they're actually taking ahead of time, and it really should be. So they should think about, you know, if I'm expected to do something along this skill tree of attribute and then the skills built into there, what kind of equipment might I need in order to enhance my abilities within that, and um, and then as they become accustomed with the system and playing in various sessions of the game, they will become uh, more skilled, experienced in doing so. Their characters are also going to gain experience along the way as well. And so players will then be able to start choosing what skill areas they want to enhance, and others, well, we really don't use that very often, so I'm not going to bother putting anything in there. All right, so people learn by doing, pushing their limits, and training. In Flow, there are three ways to develop your stalker. The first is learning new abilities. The second is overcoming your old drawbacks. And the third is developing and deepening the personality, nature, and memories of your character. All of these carry their own benefits in the game. Drawbacks limit the stalker's actions, and somehow overcome them opens new options. Developing the character's personality will change the criteria used to evaluate role playing. Contrast with the adventures of the role playing game, the time scale of these changes is very long. Sometimes stalkers never develop at all. Okay, so yeah, training these things here does take time, and learning new skills. So let's see how you learn a new skill. I'm right up here. Someone who leads a safe, comfortable life and never tests the limits will never learn anything new. All right, let's get right to the guts of it here. With the GM's consent, a stalker may also step aside and drop away from the game. He leaves the group to study or work somewhere else, promising to return after a year or two. The player may make a new character to be played until enough time has passed or the situation is otherwise appropriate for the original character to return. If the GM agrees, he may also consider creating multiple characters for each player. All right, so that's a pretty interesting, and unique way of doing it too. Is that you really do make it a long journey to gain new skills. So it's not, oh, you've earned 150 experience points, go spend them. It's you want to learn how to do a completely new skill, which might take 6 to 8 weeks of doing so. Um, the rest of the characters might not be sitting around for 6 to 8 weeks to wait for this one character to learn that skill. And so they're going to continue forward. And the player may have a backup character that will come in and almost kind of like if you remember the old TV series Mission Impossible, where um, if someone was unavailable, they would just choose another operative to go in their place, and that seems to be something that would thematically work in this game system. Is that you're going out into these zones, scavenging for artifacts and such, and so you might have various teams. Every player at the table might have several backup characters in order to keep on like a revolving door kind of basis, keep their characters uh, gaining and learning how to use the skills that they have, and then going off and training something new. But so they don't miss a game session, they'll take another character in his or her place and continue playing, and then bring that character back afterwards. So again, really cool system. I've never encountered it before like that, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how it actually, works out. So there's learning rates, there's overcoming drawbacks, developing the personality. So let's see what this says specifically about personality. A stalker's character's motives and needs all change during the game. Old goals are reached and new ones come up, just like in real life. From the GM's perspective, the easiest way to follow the development of a stalker's personality and inner life is to consider their motives. This will also have an effect on game mechanics, since acting in accordance with your motives is often credible role playing. Most players will let their stalkers' personalities develop under their own power, and socializing with the team plays a big part in this. However, a player may begin to play out his changes. If it is clear that the team will be engaging a specific type of activity over the next couple of adventures, they may begin to calculate and create credible reasons for their stalker to be especially interested in or motivated by those challenges, and so on. So it just becomes a real role playing exercise here, where players are thinking about their characters' goals and how they intend to achieve those goals, and maybe they have to go off and train or do something, or as I said earlier, maybe they have to learn how to use a new piece of equipment, or just acquire a different piece of equipment and start using that. And so I again really like the idea of the developing over time, and a it always comes back to this is something that would be relevant. It makes sense for this character, um, and that's what I really like about this, is that it's just supposed to, if it makes sense, you'll be able to do it. If it doesn't make sense, you won't. And so you have to develop your skills, and both the player and the character needs to develop skills so that whatever declaration they're making, a declared action they're making, it will become reasonable for them to be attempting that. There's a whole section on creating adventures, and maybe I'll do that in a third video, um, because there's just so much in this game system that two videos just might not do it any justice. And I will also spend some time on character creation as well, because now we're going to get into, yeah, creating adventures and creating, learning more about the campaign world and such. And that I think I will leave for another section, since this video has been going on for, a pretty good amount of time. So once again, I mean, I'm the more and more I'm reading about this game system, the more it really is an intriguing system. I really can't wait to get in on this and to actually start playing it and to even write some adventures for it, because it's just it's just so new and fresh for me. And this is a game that's 8 years old. So there is so much out there, that, I, as even as a collector like myself, where I have probably very close to 100 different RPGs, I'm still finding things out there in the OSR that, just haven't encountered before. Different ideas out there. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of different role playing games out there for you to discover, and I'm really happy to show this one off. And I will be doing a part 3, because the game is just that much and in depth, and it's just that interesting to me. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you hadn't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon. If there are any other role-playing gems out there like this, please leave that in the comments section so I can go take a look at it. And just to give you a follow-up, so it's going to be a couple days before I do the next video. We're starting to come into the holiday season, and I wish you all a happy holiday out there. If you're, whether you're celebrating the number of different holidays during these next week and a half or so, are pretty widespread across both here in the United States and the rest of the globe. So I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon. You stay healthy and enjoy, and just keep on gaming out there. I know this is the season where a lot of people pick up a lot of new stuff, and so I'm really looking forward to the videos from other channels out there, and they start showing off some of the things that they picked up as well. So again, have a great afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you sometime soon. Take care.